So, in case you're unaware, I made a Facebook post that basically asked the question, what are your thoughts about the Hunter Biden pardon? And I completely didn't expect that post to digress into a lesson about tribalism, but here we are. I asked what I intended to be well, I'm not really sure what my intentions were. I was just personal curiosity. But I got political answers, which I found rather curious, considering the subject should have nothing to do with politics. So why am I talking about this at all? I haven't made a video for a year, so why now and why this subject? Well, this topic has actually changed me. I've been out of shape about it for about a month, and I'm not easily butthurt about things, especially an understanding as elementary as life being unfair. But anyway, one critical thinking exercise I've written about is remove the names from a situation and run the thought experiment again. This situation is wrong. I don't care that Hunter's father is a Democrat, and it doesn't matter that Trump would do the same thing. Two wrongs don't make a right. Saddam Hussein did the same thing for his son, true story, and his son was a serial rapist and murderer, but that doesn't make it right either. So I don't know how Trump came into this story, or Saddam for that matter, but why this should matter to you is his whole life, a hunter acted like he was above the law. And in the end, it turns out that he was. The, the moral of this story for kids out there listening is have rich parents. If you don't, well, just pursue money and power because it helps a lot. In some sense, this situation is just like taking the magic out of life for me. I mean, I realize I should be embarrassed to be as old as I am and still being bothered by things like this. Being as I'm a white male, this may be difficult to believe, but I've had a rough go at life, growing up with a single parent mom and extreme poverty. But I didn't have it as bad as many kids who were abused and assaulted throughout their childhood. My next door neighbor is a single parent mom. I think she's Haitian, but I'm not sure. But good lady, we have a good friendship. I've got good relationship with her kids. So she has 5 kids, and she, much like my mom, works 2 jobs. She leaves in the morning around 7 and comes back in the afternoon for 30 minutes, changes her clothes, and then heads out again, and comes back at like 11:30 p.m. at night. Great kids. I love her kids. But the sad reality is that the deck is greatly stacked against them. Something like 90% of the men in prison grew up without one of their parents. By some incredible stroke of luck, I was able to stay out of prison and grow up with my finances in good order. Still, I'm a veteran, honorable discharge, no health care, no tuition. I can't even go to the VA and get a flu shot. Never gotten help from anyone in my life. Never asked for it either. No one's given me a dollar. No one's ever co-signed on a loan for me. I can't even remember getting good advice from anyone, to be honest. And the government wants to charge me 28% in taxes. That's nearly $30,000 a year. Then the Republicans say, healthcare? Ha! You damn kids these days want everything for free. Well, I'm sorry. If you want something, you have to pay for that. I forget the name of the douchebag Republican representative who said that. We obviously have paid for it, but you assholes have made a career out of misappropriating funds. Not to mention us W-2 employees like my neighbor and I are paying for his health care and his kids' health care and his kids' tuition, but he has no problem with that. If you have grown up poor or in a single parent home or have friends serving long prison terms for minor things like possession of marijuana, well, this situation should bother you too. So I'm in Delaware. I grew up here, as did the Biden family. So for years, we've been hearing about Hunter's shenanigans, for which he's never suffered the consequences, not in any legitimate sense, anyways. And long before there was talk about Joe Biden even running for Senate. So I'm going to get philosophical for a moment, but before I do, I'll jump to the punchline, which is I've determined that the reason this whole pardon thing bothered me was for two reasons. One, it served to further kill my innocent view of the world, the idea that we should all strive to be good people, follow our dreams, talents, passions, and everything will work out. And two, just how cancerous our natural tribalistic tendencies truly are. But if you've read any of my books, you'll know that I shouldn't be surprised by this. I wrote a chapter about how karma, in any magical or precise sense, is complete baloney. And in the past, I've not been bothered by Hunter's obvious tax evasion or long history of drug use. I mean, we all make mistakes. What has bothered me was his own videos about soliciting prostitutes and getting multiple women pregnant and not taking care of his children. Hearing it straight from the horse's mouth is about as fact-checked as you can possibly get, by the way, so don't even try to pull fake news on me. But not only that, but his family apparently has taken these women to court so that their children would not be allowed to use the Biden name. I mean, if that's true, that's evil. That's disgusting. Hunter collected tens of millions from a Ukrainian company and millions from China for what he says are consulting fees or something like that, which is laughable. The guy isn't an expert in anything, as far as I'm aware, and insisted on being paid in diamonds. And the tragedy there is that he doesn't have to pay child support on any of that money. I don't care about the taxes. I mean, if you're someone who pays attention, you'll know that your tax dollars are not spent, they're wasted for the most part. Not entirely, but for the most part. So we've covered number one, which is if you want any more evidence than I already laid out in the last book I wrote that karma in a real sense is complete BS, then you need not look any further than into the Hunter Biden case. And you might say, well, you don't know that. I mean, something could happen to him in the future and you don't know. No. If he were to suffer a horrible, tragic death tomorrow, it would not be just compensation for the wake of misery, the lifelong wake of misery he's left in his past, and the life of luxury that he has lived and currently lives with his multiple Porsches and helicopter rides and Secret Service protection and extravagant lifestyle. So that covers number one. Number two, being tribalism. I'm extremely liberal. I don't care that Hunter's father is a Democrat. And somehow we've managed to make a team sport out of fairness and equality. And the overwhelming majority of comments on the post I made were some form of Trump is bad, therefore this doesn't bother me, or it's common, therefore it's not immoral, or I'm good with it, I'm totally fine with it. Okay, not this is very disturbing, but I've learned to let go of things I can't change. No, it's this doesn't bother me. Not being bothered is neutral. And I think that's sick enough. But someone went so far as to say, good, I'm good with it. Not, I'm neutral with it. But with this me good? I am epically confused. I've not only checked out of American politics, I've checked out for humans. I'm now convinced that life will make infinitely more sense after I execute on my goal to exclusively converse with my dogs. So I guess the reason this situation moved me is because I haven't learned something as elementary as, hey, life's not fair. And the rest of the world hasn't learned something as simple as, what you think are intelligent thoughts are actually just your feelings, which are driven by your tribalistic tendencies. The idea that this could be made into a form of tribalism, right versus left, borders on sociopathic. It's actually kind of disgusting. This matter alone has not only caused me to lose faith in the justice system, but in humans in general, because few people have the critical thinking skills to remove the names from this situation and ask themselves if this is acceptable in any sense. I guess it's the idea that people are so married to their beliefs that it causes them to sacrifice not only rational thinking, but also empathy and family and friends. What is necessary in order to be okay with something like this? You have to have no internal desire for a world with just compensation. Statistically, my psychology textbook reported that 99% of humans do have empathy. The rest might be sociopaths. I don't know. You have to be able to suspend your empathy for the struggling people in the world and all the poor African Americans in prison for crack and marijuana possession. You have to suspend compassion. You have to suspend rational thinking, friends, and family. Our political views do all of these things to us. People actually cut off family members for political views. And someone mentioned in the comments that if Trump's kid was a bag of ass, Trump would do the same thing. And the tragedy is he's right. In fact, I can expand on that. First of all, this is a really good point. If your IQ is 12, it's not a well thought out point at all, actually. But it brings up a good point. So, second, yes, not only would Trump do the same thing, but many Republicans would probably be okay with it. Which means that we have more than 50% of the population with brains the size of a green bean. But another reason this is such a terrible attempt at logic is because Trump has absolutely nothing to do with setting the world standard for morality. Since when do we give him so much power? And even if Trump was the standard for moral decisions, two wrongs don't make a right. Oh, well, maybe Hitler would do the same thing. Well, that doesn't make it okay. The same logic is used by Putin all the time when reporters, for example, ask if it's true that he's ordered the assassination or imprisonment of his political opponents. Well, Putin would say something like, what do you say about US drone strikes in Syria that have killed countless numbers of civilians? And literally, most idiots watching that say, yeah, he's got a point. Let the one without sin cast the first stone or whatever. But no, he doesn't have a point. He simply changed the subject and tricked you into thinking it was related. Here's another attempt at a point that was made. The law permits it, so it's okay. Or all the presidents do it. Or it's common. It's constitutional. We just talked about why other presidents doing it isn't a good point. It's not just a bad point, it's a disgusting point. So the Constitution permits it, we say. Well, not long ago, the Constitution permitted owning slaves. Why that is not obvious to everyone here is because our tribalistic feelings have dictated our thoughts. This also makes me more aware of something we've always known. It's just not often put to words. And I didn't know that it was so strong. And that is the idea that what's common or normal is a synonym for okay, good, or acceptable, even though we know that that's not the case. I mean, like we talked about, slavery at one time was common, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fill in the blank. You can fill in the blank 1,000 times over. And one of the earliest lessons we learn in life when we're like 5 years old, it goes like this. You get into trouble in kindergarten and you say, well, Tommy did it. And the teacher says, that doesn't make it okay. If Tommy jumped off a bridge, would you do it? By the way, if anyone knows if there's a term for this, please put it in the comments. I'm curious to know. I can't think of anything. But how could this be? So how do I make sense of this? How can this be that so many people have suspended rational thinking? I might be making this too complicated of a subject because the clear answer is tribalism. And there's some debate about whether tribalism is a net positive or negative. And historically speaking, I know where I fall on this debate. Tribalism, not religion, has been responsible for more of history's most egregious acts. Genghis Khan was nothing without his army. The Holocaust, Hitler was nothing without his army. The Crusades, I think tribalism, for all its positives, is a net negative. And religion, by the way, if you're paying attention, you might say, can just be a manifestation of tribalism. And if you think that, you're probably correct. So in other words, if you take the historical atrocities that have taken place due to religion, well, you can actually attribute them to tribalism because tribalism encompasses religion. Religion is a subcategory of tribalism. Not saying anyone is a Nazi. We are, however, all guilty of trying to think with our feelings rather than our brains. But here's a possible silver lining. If we're more aware of how tribalism manifests itself in a negative way, we can have our cake and eat it too. If we can be more intellectual and civilized people, we could get closer to experiencing the benefits of our tribalism while reducing the negatives. Still, there are people listening to this, I'm sure, who are hating on me. They think because I'm not making sense, but it's actually because there's something in their brain that's signaling to them that I'm not on their team when I really am on their team. The real tragedy here is the lesson this teaches kids and kids like myself, which is don't pursue your passions. All this talk about follow your passion. I didn't spend a minute of my childhood trying to become rich, and situations like this prove that I probably should have. And situations like this just teach us that if we're being honest with kids, we'd better serve them by saying things like, hey, listen to me, screw your passion and talent. Pursue money and power. Money solves most problems in life, and the ones that it doesn't solve, power and social capital solves. Power solves everything that money solves, plus everything else. So no, I don't support this at all. I don't support this pardon. I don't care what president and what country and what political affiliation does something like this. It's sick, it's disgusting, it shouldn't be allowed.